What's a harmless, non-serious secret you've kept forever? Story 1. In 2009, my best friend was struggling to pay rent when his TV broke, so I went and bought him an, at the time, 42-inch HD TV for over $1,000. I knew he would never accept me spending that much as a gift, so I took it out of the box and put a few small scratches on the back and told him I bought a new TV and that he could have my old one that I didn't use anymore. He's doing way better now financially, but he has no idea I did that and I will never tell him. Story 2. When I was about 15 or 16, I had a sleepover with about 10 of my friends and my sister. I decided to have some fun with them and pretended to sleep talk. They recorded it on a cassette tape, and I figured it would just be a fun, harmless prank. Well, nearly 30 years later, they still keep bringing it up. They still don't know that I was faking, and I don't know how to tell them at this point because so much time has passed. That tape is still floating around. I hate it when they bring it up, and they think it's because I'm embarrassed about sleep talking, but the reality is it was just a stupid prank I played when I was a teenager, and I just never in a million years thought that it would still be going around 3 decades later. I want this to just freaking die already. Nobody knows my secret except for you, random strangers on Reddit. Story 3. Luckily, not shared with as many people, but when we were young teenagers, I had a Ouija board. I totally faked being a spirit in the room and moved the Ouija pieces to spell out words. Weeks later, we held a seance and I pretended to channel a French woman's spirit and spoke in a super fake French accent. It's now been 30 years and my best friend still brings up the stories about these real spiritual encounters. I cringe every time. Story 4. When my brother was 4, he won a stuffed animal from a claw machine and it was his favorite thing ever. He slept with it every night for weeks. One night, he fell asleep on the couch and was carried to bed, but left his stuffed animal on the floor where the dog decided to tear it to pieces during the night. I spent $40 trying to win another one and put it under his bed for him to find. Story 5. As a previous nanny, I've seen many first steps and heard many first words, but I never share that. When I leave, I say something like, I think the little one is so close to walking and talking. It's a special moment parents deserve. Who am I to take that from them? One baby was walking with me for a full 2 weeks before he showed his parents his new tricks. We did that at a daycare I worked at. I remember specifically one time this kid had been walking all day. His mom came to pick him up, and my grandmother who ran the place sat him down really fast so she wouldn't see. When his mom rounded the corner, he stood up and walked to her, and the look on her face was priceless. She was so excited. Ha! I wonder if my older son's daycare did that. We were moving and it was his last day at that daycare, and his care provider said, "We'll miss him. Too bad we won't get to see his first steps. He seems pretty close." We got home. Soon my mom arrived to help us move, and we were very surprised when he suddenly marched across the living room to Grandma. Maybe he'd really been working on that all day. Who knows? I think you already know. Story 6. I did a lot of sneaky stuff when I was a kid. I mostly stole chocolates every night up until Christmas Eve. I did it while everyone was asleep. My mom is a light sleeper, so if I stepped anywhere that made the wooden floor creak, she'd yell, "Who's awake?" Well, during the day, I would memorize all the creaking spots from my room to the living room, where the chocolates were at. I wouldn't get greedy though, only 2 or 3 chocolates at a time. I was super patient. If I heard any noise that made me suspect someone was awake, I would stand there frozen for nearly 10 minutes at a time. I even had a plan B in case someone had to use the bathroom, hiding spots. One night, my dad got up to pee, and I hid behind the china cabinet while he walked past me half asleep. I'm picturing some real Mission Impossible stuff. I love those movies, same intensity and anxiety, but it feels so good when you're not caught. I actually used to tell myself, mission success, when I got back to my bed with the taste of chocolate still on my teeth. Ha! Story 7. I farted in physics tutoring class consisting of 6 to 10 people, including the tutor. A friend started yelling about the air conditioner having a bad smell. He suspected a bird or a mouse died in there. Finally, we all had to move to continue the class in another room. Until this day, no one in the group knows that I farted. It seems the tutee has become the tutor. Story 8. I've had type 1 diabetes since I was 3. On my 9th birthday, my grandma made a birthday cake for me, which was big enough for us all to share at the family party. Since there was so much food, we had plenty of leftover cake for the next few days, which I was only allowed to eat a little bit of. When no one was around, I snuck into the kitchen and ate a couple of slices of the leftover cake, plus I picked huge chunks of the icing off. It looked pretty haphazard by the time I snuck away again. My parents soon found the remains of the cake. Since I'm diabetic, they didn't suspect it was me who picked at the leftovers. I was usually a very well-behaved kid. They blamed it on our rather chubby cat and promptly deemed it unacceptable for human consumption. It was a believable scenario because she had stolen human food in the past. Sadly, they threw the rest of the cake out. I could never own up to it because I would have been in trouble for compromising my blood sugar levels and for being greedy. My old cat never ratted me out for letting her take the blame, though. Thanks, Molly. Rest in peace. Story 9. I used to live in a dorm hall when I was an undergrad. There was this one guy in the dorms who had a mat outside his door. I always thought it was a little weird because, 1, you had to walk a long way through the carpeted hall to get to the door, so your shoes would surely be mostly clean by that point, and 2, anyone could just simply walk away with it. I kind of just assumed someone would steal it eventually, but after about a month, I noticed it was still there. I obviously wasn't going to steal someone's stuff, but I did want to mess with it, so I simply moved it to the door across the hall. The next day, I saw it had been moved back, so I decided to move it across the hall again. I did this for an entire year. Sometimes they'd give up and leave it at the other door for a week, then I'd just move it back to mess with them. I loved the idea that surely led to some sort of argument between the two neighbors because nobody is going to think that some guy is just randomly deciding to screw with them for no reason. I literally never met either of the people that lived in those rooms. I just kept messing with their mats. I had some special moments with it too. On Christmas, I replaced the mat with a Christmas one and then put the original one back the next day. On Easter, I bought the cheapest Easter basket I could find and filled it with granny candies like Werther's and those strawberry candies. Then I hid it under the mat. At one point, I bought a second mat just sometimes to put at both doors. Then take the second mat. I had some special moments with it too. On Christmas, I replaced the mat with a Christmas one and then put the original one back the next day. On Easter, I bought the cheapest Easter basket I could find and filled it with granny candies like Werther's and those strawberry candies. Then I hid it under the mat. At one point, I bought a second mat to just sometimes put at both doors, then take the second mat away randomly. Eventually, I moved into an apartment and couldn't mess with them anymore, though. They never got to find out who was messing with them or what was going on. Story 9. Dad, I lied that day in kindergarten when I said I had a tummy ache and needed to go home. I was totally fine. I was just super bored and wanted to spend time with you. My father was a doctor and generally careful and organized person. When he passed away, I found among his papers a file that contained all the charts of my childhood illnesses, temperature graphs, timed updates, including the ones where I was clearly faking it to get out of school. Quote, complaints of stomach pains, physical exam reveals no obvious cause. Temperature 97.1, remained at home for observation. What do you think? Do you have any secrets you've kept forever? If so, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. This is Chino signing off.